remember my siblings would be like, what the hell are you doing in there for so long? And I'd be like, my makeup wipe. Ugh. Hello guys and dolls and welcome back. Today I'm going to be sharing with you a very special Throwback Thursday. This is the How I Did My Makeup in High School challenge video tag thing. I'm pretty excited about this. I needed a little bit of a break from Lipstick Week, although I love it. We have 2 more videos left in Lipstick Week. If you haven't already been watching those videos, I'll have a link in the description bar down below to a playlist so you can catch up. I watched a couple of these videos just to kind of get a general feel for it. I know some people are kind of going back and actually repurchasing those same products. A lot of the stuff that I used in high school isn't available anymore because I kind of graduated like 13 years ago, so yeah, that's kind of a little while for, I mean, I'm sure some of the products are still around, but as a teenager I had a lot of free access to makeup because my mom sold Avon, so anything I really wanted out of the catalog she would get me, which is so generous. Thanks, Mom. But you know, I didn't really venture into the drugstore or even a little bit into department. I'll talk a little bit about some of the department store things that I wore, but really it was mostly just Avon stuff. I thought this would be really fun to do the way that xsparkage did, where she had all 4 years. So I'm going to be sharing with you everything that I did in freshman, sophomore, junior, and my senior year of high school. I just think this is really fun, and I'm super excited to share this with you guys. So if you'd like to learn what year this is, let's go ahead and get started. Freshman year, or rather 2 months before my freshman year started, me and my friend Tara were just very like rebel and angsty, and we listened to a lot of Fiona Apple, and we got the harebrained idea that it would be a brilliant idea to cut all our hair off. And I have to say that I think that a lot of girls kind of go through this phase where they hardcore reject their femininity, especially if they've had anything traumatic happen to them. And I think that it's a very common thing that girls go through this phase where they want to be androgynous or very tomboy. And cutting off our hair was just sort of a way to kind of express our rejection of the man, you know? It was partially that, but I also want to be totally honest about the fact that it might have been a little bit influenced by the fact that she had a lot of older siblings who had cool friends, and a lot of those girls had short hair. It was just very in trend at that time, especially in the late 90s, for women to have short, cute hairstyles, like cute, like shagged out pixies and stuff like that. The problem is we didn't really fully understand that like just cutting your hair short is not necessarily a good look. You really need a stylist to actually like cut it properly. We went to Supercuts and had our hair banged off and cut off like 2 inches all over. It was horrible. Oh my god, it was so bad. So starting my freshman year of high school, I had this terrible haircut. I was in this period of time where I was rejecting my femininity. I was wearing a lot of boyish clothes. Actually, I was wearing men's clothes. I did a lot of thrift store shopping at this time. And slowly throughout the year, I started to progress into a more feminine look. I think I just kind of matured a little bit and kind of started to come into my own a little bit. When I was in my freshman year of high school, I really didn't wear a lot of makeup. And when I did, I was fairly experimental with it. One thing I did do a lot was a lot of hair mascara. I would like put it through my roots and put my hair in these like buns right here. So I would sort of like do like these messy buns, kind of like that. That's cute. Why don't I do this anymore? Kind of like Shibby Moon. Oh my god, that's so cute. Why don't I do that anymore? Okay, so I would do this with my hair when it started to grow, because of course at first I had like no hair. By the end of the year, this photo was taken towards the end of my freshman year of high school. I was gonna say college. Obviously this is not a college photo of myself. And so you can see, by the way, love the up the nose shot. Okay, first of all, I have to say, like, when I was in high school, we didn't have like cell phones or anything like that. We definitely didn't have phone cameras and stuff. So a lot of the photos that you would take with your friends would be with like the disposable cameras. So that's why a lot of your shots would come out like this. So I was trying to get a photo of myself with like all my collages and stuff. I didn't really wear foundation or anything at this point because when I was in 7th grade, I had tried wearing concealer, and a couple of the older girls in my school made fun of me because it was the wrong color. And it like literally traumatized me from trying to wear concealer like ever again. So I didn't really try concealer again, I think, until I was an adult. I might have worn a little concealer. I think I wore this little dot thing a lot bigger than this, but I'm not doing that. I think sometimes the dot thing was actually to cover a zit. And I distinctly remember a teacher asking me if this was like a Charles Manson thing, and then I stopped doing it. So I would draw like the center with like a gray liquid liner. By the way, these are the Urban Decay Razor Sharp liners. And I had a lot of access to makeup because my mom sold Avon. So I had makeup and I played with it, but I didn't really wear it to school. Partially because, you know, I was 14. And also because I just wasn't that interested in expressing any kind of femininity. So when I did play with makeup, it was a little bit more experimental and fun, which honestly I think is such a healthy expression, especially for a 14-year-old girl. I did wear like tinted lip balm. I remember very distinctly I had like a reddish colored Carmex that I just loved. And a few other different ones, again, because my mom sold Avon. I don't even remember like what line in the Avon line they were, but I'm just going to wear this one from Pixie, which smells divine, and I don't know what the name of the color is. Oh, Natural Rose. Perfect. So this was my freshman year look. Maybe a little mascara. Nothing really all that interesting really going on here. So we're gonna go ahead and do a little wipe and move on to my sophomore year. So in my sophomore year of high school, two major things happened. I dyed my hair hot pink. So this is actually my yearbook photo. Super fancy. And I was like, Nirvana, oh my god. So there was that. There was the fact that I really got into grunge music hardcore. I was super duper obsessed with Hole and Nirvana and the Smashing Pumpkins. I actually still have my like high school Smashing Pumpkin. In fact, I'll go put that on right now. This is my old Smashing Pumpkin shirt. This used to be a little bit bigger on me, but I got a whole lot more boobie now than I did in high school. So I was just like really super into the whole like Courtney Love Kinder whore look, which is so un-PC, but I'm not here to like tell you a magical story about some like magical PC universe. I'm just here to tell you how it was. So that's kind of where I was. And then in the later half of the year, my family moved like an hour away. So I had to start all over again in terms of friends and stuff. And so in some ways my style kind of devolved because I had started to really open myself up and started to get a little more interested in fashion and makeup and stuff. And then I didn't have any friends, and I felt really shitty about myself. So I had this like weird disconnect where I was like half dressing super girly and half dressing like super frumpy and going back to wearing boys' clothes and stuff. In my sophomore year of high school, I got a little bit more adventurous with makeup. At this point, I wasn't really wearing foundation or anything, but I did start wearing powder. So this is the Pixie powder, and this one this is just a modern powder. This isn't what I used. At that time, I would have been using translucent powder from Avon. Which I'm sure they still sell some version of that. But this was local and on hand, and I had recently purchased this to try out anyway. And when I tried this out, I was like, wow, this reminds me a lot of that powder that I used. A little bit nicer, of course. But this is how I would apply it with the little sponge that it came with. Oh, this is so bad. But I would like pack this shit on until my face practically looked like velvety and powdery, because that was kind of the look of like that Courtney Love like powdered doll look. I don't even know how to describe it. It was awful. I also used to wear like a bronzery blush. So the closest thing to that blush that I have on hand is from Makeup Geek. This is Infatuation. I used to wear one from Avon called Earthen Rose or something like that. So I'm just grabbing a random brush. I did have a blush brush back then. My grandmother was really into makeup. Both of my grandmothers actually, and so they would gift me, like the big monster truck, I said, like the big monster like train case things, and yeah, this like brown ass blush. What the fuck I was thinking, I will never know. This time I think I was wearing a little bit of eyeshadow too, but it was mostly just like a little bit of green, and I'm pretty sure I put it on. Ooh, this is a lot darker. I'll just blend it out with the other finger and lighten it up. But I was wearing this like olive eyeshadow that, yeah, there we go. That's about accurate. Actually, it doesn't look half bad. The eyeshadow that I'm using today is from Black Radiance. It's actually a lot more pigmented than what I used. And I'll talk about this a little bit more probably in my junior year, but I was wearing these like olive green eyeshadows that were from Avon. And before that I was saying something about my grandmothers. They would send me makeup, and I would experiment with it and play with it when I was at home, but I really wouldn't wear it like at school or out or anything. It was just sort of almost like a private thing. Then I would wear a ton of black eyeliner on my upper eyelid. I'm going to grab a little mirror so I can see what I'm doing. Oh, so much powder. Oh, that is frightening. I don't know why. It was something about like having shiny skin was like literally a mortal sin to me. Oh my god, I'm literally looking at my face and I want to cry. It's so dry and crappy. I can't believe I did my makeup like this. This is so bad. It's like muscle memory though. Oh yeah, this side's really turning out good. This is that good. And then for my bottom, I would wear black in my waterline. One thing that was definitely a staple for me was either an olive eyeliner or a purple eyeliner. And I would use that to blend out the black, which actually is what I would do now as well. It just sort of softens it out. It kind of enhances your grungy look. So this is exactly pretty much what I would do. I don't think I wore bottom mascara at this point in my life. It was all about the top lashes. And you know what else I would do? And this is so not appropriate, or like not that it's inappropriate, but this is not good makeup. I would train all of my lashes to go out this way. I remember that very distinctly because I remember later seeing someone else do it and thinking how ridiculous it looked, and I stopped doing it. One thing that I would wear a lot of is a red lipstick, and my favorite one was from Clinique. It was called Vintage Wine. Because I don't have that available right now, I'm going to be using a color that's very similar. This is Urban Decay Gash. And one thing at this point in time that was definitely like a standard of beauty for me was a very like pointy small mouth, and I don't really know why. Again, didn't have YouTube tutorials, so I would definitely draw my lips in, almost really following my own natural lip shape. Now it's very popular to have a more rounded lip shape, but my natural lip shape does have very strong peaks as well, particularly on this side. On this side I have a scar. That's a whole other story time for another time. A strong peak was very, very important to me at this time, as was slightly underlining my lower lip, and I would make it almost sort of come to a point in the center. Again, I really kind of like this. I wonder why I stopped doing it. For lining it out, I'm going to fill it in with Mrs. Mia Wallace from Urban Decay. This is a bit brighter. And even back then, I would layer lipsticks. I had, again, a lot of access to makeup because my mom sold Avon, so she would have like all these like little lipstick samples, so I would sort of like mix my own custom color pretty much every day. I'm like looking at myself in the mirror and I'm literally horrified at how bad this looks. So that is my sophomore year look. So my junior year of high school, I was going to a new school, and I actually went to 4 different high schools, if you guys want to know. And well, one of them I went to for like a week, so I don't know if that counts, but that was during my tumultuous sophomore year. I wore a lot of makeup at this time because I was in this like hardcore goth phase. Only it really wasn't hardcore. Like to me it was hardcore, but like looking back I'm like, that's pretty soft goth. But I have some photos here from my prom. Yes, I wore a satin corset and red fishnets with this weird like gelled up flower crown. Unfortunately this photo is like horribly overexposed. But it cannot hide how bad this makeup was. So we are going to go ahead and do some sort of version of what I did in my junior year. I did wear, as I said, a lot of makeup because I was in this like whole goth phase. So one thing that's actually interesting, I can't remember if it was actually just called Super Balanced, but I remember wearing a Clinique foundation that was supposed to help with acne. And I don't know if it was the Super Balanced or if they had a like Super Clear or like some kind of other name, but I remember it didn't have a pump, and I remember thinking how weird it was that something that was like for acne didn't have like a pump on it. And this is how I would do it. I would do it with my fingers. And this is when I really was like using foundation for the very first time. I had probably, experimented a bit with my mom's foundation, played with her makeup or whatever, but not really worn it myself on a daily basis. But once I was like, I'm going to be a goth girl now, I was like, okay, well, you better pale out that face, buddy. Another thing I want to mention that's kind of spooky. I received this foundation in the mail as a PR sample today on the day that I went to film this. Kind of weird, right? This is actually partially sophomore year and in my junior year of high school. I had this powder from Clean and Clear. Actually, I did at some point have some drugstore makeup, and it was blue, and it would make you so freaking pale. Oh my god, I loved that powder. It was supposedly for like minimizing redness, but really just made you look like a ghost. So to sort of replicate that, I'm going to be using this powder from Lunatic Cosmetic Labs. I love this powder. This is their mystifying mattifying powder. This is such a great powder just generally. I'm going to kind of abuse my face with it right now because I'm going to be going for that, like, you know, junior year goth vibe. But for my pale friends out there who want a really great, like, mattifying setting powder, this is really awesome, and it will actually make your skin look a little paler if you're going for that whole... Like, look how good my skin, like, that's... And at this point I have like a very smeary black. So I'm going to be using the Pro Prime from LA Girl to Pro Prime my eyelids. No, to just smear on some black at my lash line. And it was doing sort of like a graduated smoky eye where I would have a lot of the liner. In fact, I'm not even sure if I had it quite this thick. One thing I highly remember from this time period was wearing a lot of purple eyeshadow. In fact, I'm wearing it in my prom photo there. I don't have anything as crappy as what I wore back then, so I'm just going to use something good. Danzig. It's a beautiful purple. Now, what I would use is this one that Avon had called Grape Effects, and it was a wet, dry eyeshadow that you could, you know, enhance the color of it by applying it wet, and at times it would stain my eyelids pink. It was horrible, but I loved it. So I'm just going to put this on all over the lower lid, just with my fingers, which is how I did it. I didn't really have brushes back then. It was all about that finger banging. So I would have that like all over the lid, and it'd be super, super intense over where I had the black liner, and it would sort of fade out. So to mimic that look, I'm going to take Trax eyeshadow from MAC, which I definitely did not have any MAC eyeshadow in high school. I did not discover them until I was, I think, 19 or something, like 20 maybe. But this is what it would look like. Oh my god, I like this a lot. Very, like, bruised. Which was probably the appeal, if I know myself. I remember at one point, like, the cool goth girl was like, what's your eyeshadow? And I remember being like, oh my god, she recognized me. Okay, so then purple eyeliner on the bottom. Pretty heavy. I don't think I actually used Q-tips back then. I just would use my finger. But it was definitely sloppy. But it was kind of like a style. Like it was like intentional. I think I would probably put black in my waterline at this point. And it's funny because I can remember the way that my makeup looked. Like I remember that my mascara came in this pale blue tube from Avon, but I can't remember the name of it for the life of me. Then, for lips, I wore this plummy color. I would wear red, like dark reds. I would wear the same red I had worn in my sophomore year, but I also wore this sort of like mauve color, like all the time. So that's what I'm going to do for you guys today. This is Lydia from OCC. Yep, this is totally, yep. High school makeup. At this point in time, like what I would wear is basically like band t-shirts, and I had like all these like velvet like lace up tops that I would wear. It was horrible. I loved it. So this is my sophomore year look. It's a bit messy, but actually this is the kind of look that like cleaned up and done with the proper technique and maybe a little blush to like bring me to life might not actually look all that bad. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and apply a little blush just to like show you guys, like, it could be cute. This is like the wrong blush. I'm just using the same one from my sophomore year, but even then, like, okay, this is poorly applied, but you get the point. Like, with a little bit of color, like, it's not so bad. You know, when I was growing up, not to sound like some old geezer, but truly, when I was a teenager, we didn't have social media. There was the internet, but not everyone had it, and certainly not everyone was obsessed with it. In fact, my family didn't even have like AOL or anything. So even some of that early internet stuff I just was like totally unaware of. I pretty much only use the internet to like go on eBay and try to buy Smashing Pumpkins stuff, honestly. But I was thinking about this today, how, you know, having social media at your fingertips is such a blessing and a curse for very young people today, because you have access to so much stuff, so much more information, just access to products and things and knowledge and tutorials and all kinds of stuff. So many things that could have prevented me from making mistakes in terms of like makeup and fashion and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, there's so much more pressure on the youths to look a certain way. Anyway, this is like turning into like a whole therapy sesh. But I was just thinking about that today, about how social media has such like has a lot of, you know, positive and negative impact in the lives of today's youth. For my senior year of high school, I kind of learned how to be a little bit more minimal with my foundation. I applied a little bit less of it because I wasn't trying to like totally mask out my face. I found a color that actually worked for me a little bit better. And also I applied a tinted powder. I remember that very specifically, kind of going back to the tinted powder that I'd worn in my sophomore year, but now using it to set my foundation occasionally. And really most days I would just wear the powder. But since we're going for kind of the makeup that I did wear, when I was, you know, going to school, I didn't really wear a whole lot of makeup in my senior year. I was just kind of busy trying to get my freaking thing and get out, you know? So I do remember applying foundation to my eyelids as a primer, which is why when actual primer came out, I was like, who needs that? You just put your foundation on your eyelids. And then I tried primer and I was like, oh my God. So I remember that I would, at this point, I was kind of getting out of the whole like super dark eyeliner thing, and I was more into like a very soft smoky eye. So I would take a brown eyeshadow, and this is MAC's Mulch, which is not what I used back then. Again, I didn't discover MAC yet, but I would use this very shimmery golden brown that was very similar to Mulch, and I would apply it all over my lid like this. And I would avoid the inner corner, and I would blend it. Yeah, I totally had brushes at this point because I know I was blending. It had this very frosty, like buttery yellow, like this. This is the Comfort Zone palette from Wet n Wild, which I love. And I put it over the brown. Except for like in the outer little bit, I would leave the brown alone. Yep. The other thing I wore a lot in this time period was a whole lot of glitter, but glitter hair gel. I would put it in my hair, I would curl my hair, and then put the glitter in, and it would make my hair hard and crunchy, and Mikey absolutely hated it. To this point, I remember being very, like, hippie-ish in a way. I remember I did, like, a fairy wing photo shoot. My mom would do these, like, fun photo shoots when I was growing up. And I was just into like the hippie thing, more like minimal in terms of the makeup that I wore. A little more careful with my mascara application. Finally had figured out the whole fan thing instead of the sweeping to the side. I was wearing blush at this point, and again I was wearing the Earth and Rose that I had worn in my sophomore year, so I was kind of coming full circle with it. And I had learned to apply it a little more carefully, a little more like stripey actually, which isn't necessarily technically good, but that's just how I was doing it. So in my senior year, I had spent some time growing my hair out. It was like my natural blonde. It was very like hippie. I remember doing a lot of like down the center parts, or like doing my hair kind of like this where I'd sort of twist it back. I think Ever After had already come out with Drew Barrymore, and I was like very inspired by that movie in some way, just to be a little more au naturel. And I think part of that was the fact that I was falling like legitimately in love with Mikey, and I just felt like being myself in like my natural state somehow. which is funny because now I'm even more in love with him and I feel more free to experiment and go totally balls out with makeup. I wasn't really wearing a whole lot of lipstick or anything because I was too busy kissing up on this guy. So one thing I do remember is I had this like very sheer lipstick from Avon, and actually I might have actually had this all throughout high school and worn it for way too many years, but it was a very sheer like red, berry red type thing. It's actually very similar to Sheer Shame from Urban Decay, which is what I'm going to use today. In fact, if it wasn't the exact same color, then I'm a monkey's uncle. But it came in this like slide up tube that had like a lime green plastic piece. That's all I really remember. It was definitely from Avon. I know a couple of companies had similar products. The other lipstick that I wore that was kind of like this was Clinique Black Honey, which had just it was a little bit more muted. It wasn't quite this punchy. And this is about as close as I got to gloss during high school. I did not like it. It was sticky. I lived in a very windy city, and it didn't seem like a very good idea. I was much more about the lipstick. So this is my senior year look. I kind of got into a more minimalistic makeup look. I wasn't really worried about impressing my peers anymore. I was falling in love with this guy and making out with him a whole lot. In those like first few months of puppy love, when all you can think about is the other person and seeing them, and like you I don't know, you want to like impress them a little bit, of course, and that's why I did wear makeup sometimes, especially like smoky eyes and soft lips and things like that. But I also didn't want to have like cake face when we're making out, so I didn't wear a whole lot of face makeup. I went pretty minimal. And also it was my senior year. I was just trying to like focus on school and stuff. And all that nice neat junk. Yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. I would love to see you guys do this video. If you do, please send them to me. I would love to see what you wore in high school. I think this is a really fun tag. Thank you to Leisha to kind of expanding it to all 4 years. I think that is such a great idea, which is why I did it. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will resume Lipstick Week in my next video. Remember to be vintage or tacky. Just be your own kind of beautiful.